Welcome to Better Odds Sports Betting. Here's our hosts, Kev O'Neill and Kyle Hunter.
Welcome back to Better Odds Sports Betting, everybody. It's another Friday afternoon. We got a big weekend of college football and NFL ahead of us. I hope you guys have had a great week. Kev O'Neill here with me from theoddsbreakers.com. We're joined today by Dylan at Dilberto's Picks on Twitter. Dylan, first, thanks for taking the time out of the day here to join us today.
Most definitely. I really appreciate you guys having me on, and I'm excited to chat some football, some good games this weekend. So I am excited to see what you guys like to see, and what are the outcomes for these games that I'm looking forward to. So,
yeah, I mean, I think there's some pretty good games this weekend. Maybe not the biggest slate of, huge heavyweight matchups or anything, but it's sometimes these weekends that get totally crazy in college football, right? We see some of those crazy upsets that nobody saw coming. I remember a couple of weeks ago, we had one of those where just a wild weekend of the big favorites falling. So I think we could see another crazy weekend coming up here, but guys, let's go ahead and get into some of the games. We've got several games to talk about. We will finish the show again, as we always do, talking about our underdog that's most likely to win outright. And Dylan, that's a team that's 3.5-point dog or bigger. If you don't have one, you don't have to say one. If you do, you can. But Kiev and I have had quite a bit of success on those. And sometimes we hit these pizza money parlays on a big underdog money line. So we'll see if we can have as good a luck here this week. But let's start off here this week talking about Duke and Kansas. I think game day should have gone to this game, right? This was the perfect opportunity to go see undefeated Duke, undefeated Kansas. This line has come down throughout the week. Correct me if I'm wrong. I believe this one's at 7 now for Kansas. It was Duke plus 10, plus 9 for a while. Quite a bit of sharp action here on Duke. Kiev, Duke and Kansas. Why don't you break this one down first for us?
Yeah, I was really bummed when I learned that game day wasn't going to come there. There's probably a lot of people that thought tradition is more important than just big SEC names. It's kind of like there's a lot of different options, I'm sure, for this week before, because if Wisconsin didn't lose to Washington State, that game day might have been in Ohio State. If Texas A&M didn't lose to Appalachian State, they might have had game day at AT&T Stadium down there, which would have sucked anyway. Let's face it, it's not a college place. But I thought this or Corvallis should have been the game day for sure. I think the Corvallis USC Oregon State game is going to be fantastic. But obviously, it's still going to be a great game to watch. I think that it's so cool to see all these basketball schools. They're doing great. I mean, Syracuse is 3-0. Kentucky is 3-0 right now. You have Kansas and Duke are undefeated as well. I think it's kind of interesting to see all these basketball schools doing extremely well. But to be honest with you, this spread was a little bit of a head scratcher seeing at 7.5. And I just keep thinking to myself, is Kansas going to let down at some point? Kyle, you and I both really liked Kansas before the season started. There's a few people that did. We were the few, and I was proud to say that. But how much do you keep upgrading them in the power ratings until they fall off the ledge?
Mm-hmm.
That's what I'm really wondering. Now they're a pretty big favorite against Duke, who's also showed really well so far. Now, the problem with Duke is that Northwestern win's not aging so well. When Northwestern's losing to Southern Illinois, it's certainly not. But what I will say is I'm on this spread at about 7.5, and it's down to 7 right now. That's my number. And if you look at the strength of schedule, it's really important because Duke's ranks really low. I believe 179th on Sagarin, while Kansas is at least 77th. I mean, they beat Houston, the American Athletic Conference dark horse, and they also beat a West Virginia team that took care of business last night, if you watched that in Virginia Tech. So you got to give them props for that. Duke ranks 14th in EPA margin, but this is the problem. There's so many strength of schedule differences this year in the beginning that I almost think that could be a fade angle coming into this week as it is. Duke hasn't played anybody. Kansas at least played someone. I'm going to pass and enjoy this game, but I'm going to be rooting for Kansas, man, because I might have that plus 400 ticket, or no, not plus 400, 400 to 1. They win the Big 12 still in my back pocket.
Oh wow, yeah, what a big ticket that is. We already got our over 2.5 on season win total, which was nice to cash in here early in the season. I can't help but want to root for Kansas. I like Lance Leipold quite a bit. I think he's done a great job here. Hopefully, he doesn't get hired away pretty soon, but that definitely could happen. Um, as far as me for this game, I'll say I considered betting the under, and this one has been kind of steamed to the under here in the last day. It got up as high as 66.5. I'm kind of kicking myself for not taking that. The thing about this game that's tricky is both teams have been explosive on offense, but they both play really slowly. I think that's a pretty high total for two teams that play that slowly. Kansas has the much better wins, like Kiev said. Duke, I mean, Leonard has played well at quarterback. I think Jalen Daniels is a really underrated quarterback for Kansas for sure. I think the biggest difference for Kansas is that their offensive line used to be really bad, and now their offensive line is a pretty good offensive line. It makes a big difference. Jalen Daniels grades out at PFF at 83. A couple of years ago, he was 38, which was one of the worst in the entire country. So a big difference there, but it also helps if the line's giving you a little bit of time. I'm going to lean toward Kansas here. If I have to bet this one at -7, I'd bet Kansas. I think this one's getting a little bit overdone. I like Elko, the coach, as well at Duke. I think these are both really well-coached teams. As far as the total at this point, just a slight lean to the under for me because it's gone down so much. But I don't have anything strong on this game. Dylan, do you have any thoughts here for Kansas and Duke?
I Everything you guys have said is spot on to how I feel about Kansas in this game. But one of the things that we saw like last year, it seemed that Kansas in the beginning of the year was a big team that everyone wanted to fade because of how bad they looked in the beginning of the season. But then towards the end, they started putting things together. Obviously, not winning many games last year at all, but they were able to cover towards the end of the year and they started looking better and better. And then coming into this season, they've had quite a few returning players as well as a few transfers come through. And I think that's really paid off for them. And I believe that, I mean, I'm leaning Kansas as well because of the fact Jalen Daniels is dangerous in the passing game and in the running game. I think he's actually their leading rusher this year as well. So, um, I think one of the issues that we're going to see in this game is Duke has had some issues tackling over the last 2 weeks, and they really haven't played that good of talent, as we've discussed. The teams that they've played, not the best teams in terms of overall skill set on those teams. So I think if Jalen Daniels is able to get outside the pocket and rush against this Duke team, I think that we're going to see some issues with them being able to contain him. And I believe that it will be a lower scoring game. So I kind of lean the under. But if I was going to take a play in this game, I would ride Kansas because of the fact that I think they have a better offense, in my opinion. And I think they also have a better defense in terms of um, their run defense as well as their ability to tackle. So I lean Kansas to cover in this one.
All right. So, Dylan, I'm going to put you on the spot here a little bit, and I'll give my opinion too. I know you're a Boise guy, so I saw
Yeah.
this question in the chat here, and I thought we have to ask you on this one. So, what do you think of Boise State by 9.5 here in the first half tonight?
I as a Boise alumni, I'm a little scared about touching any spreads, especially with this team that we have this year. Our our defense, as you've seen, has been very good, even against an Oregon State team. The only reason why Oregon State put up so many points on Boise State was because of the fact that the offense was giving Oregon State the ball um, within 30 yards of the end zone every time. Like they didn't have to drive the ball at all, and they only put up 30 on Boise State. And I think that if you look into the statistics, I think Boise is actually considered one of like top 15 in defensive efficiency and being able to shut down opposing offenses. But the reason why I'm worried about the cover is because the Boise State offense has looked absolutely atrocious this year. Hank Bachmeier has definitely regressed. He's a fifth-year senior, I believe, and this is probably the worst he's looked out of all the years that he's been here. I'm not high on Boise State. I do think that they could cover tonight, but I think it's going to have to come from George Halani, the running back, because the passing game has looked less than par. So I'm actually on the under on that Boise State game because of the fact that if you look at both of these offenses, they're both bottom 30 in FBS in being able to like score. I mean, essentially all stats, they're like bottom 30. And I think that Boise State defense is going to show up as they always do. But I think the reason why I question covering is because of the fact that the offense has not looked great at all. So,
yeah, that's what I was going to say too. I think we're on the same side here. I took the under for a small bet myself. UTEP is an under team, in my opinion. We saw them struggle to score even against New Mexico. This UTEP team is not near as explosive this year without Jacob Cowing and Garrett on the outside. I think Boise should be able to shut them down pretty well. So the question is, how many will Boise score? I agree with you. Bachmeier has looked the worst he's looked in any year. And I'm kind of surprised Talon Green hasn't gotten more playing time because he actually looked pretty good there. Green did in that first game when he came in against Oregon State. But, Bachmeier was this highly touted guy that was supposed to be really good, and he kind of started out decent. And he's just kind of declined. So I know Boise fans are probably kind of disappointed in his performance. But like you said, the Boise defense is a good one. Now, I can't bet this play huge tonight because it is a pretty low number, but I think it's low for a good reason.
So last year this game happened, and I was on UTEP and I was on the wrong side. It was in Boise. Boise did what they want with them. This feels like a get right game for Boise. I lean that direction going first half -9.5. But what I also kind of like is UTEP team total under 14. Yeah. You can see that right now on Bet Online and a couple other books. Some of my books, unfortunately, don't offer team totals for state regulations. But if you look around enough, you can find that. I don't see UTEP getting past 13 points for sure.
I think that feels like a good bet. I mean, even if they get 14, you push. So I could live with that. If I had to bet a side, I would bet Boise too, just because I don't think UTEP will score very much here. And maybe Boise even scores with their defense. Hopefully not too much since we have that under. But let's get into the next game, guys. So Florida and Tennessee this weekend. This is usually just a massive showdown in the SEC. I'm going to start on this one. Anthony Richardson, remember after that first game with Utah, there was Anthony Richardson for Heisman talk. And now you look at Anthony Richardson's PFF grade for the year, 53.2. He's behind Braxton Burmeister of San Diego State, Braxton Burmeister has not been good at all, and yet his grade is higher than Anthony Richardson. Richardson has huge playability, certainly, no doubt about that, but Richardson has 4 interceptions already, even though he hasn't thrown it that much. A lot of turnover-worthy plays. He's got to cut down on those big mistakes. And Florida's defense, they're really bad at stopping the run. 113th in rushing play success rate allowed. They're allowing almost 50% on third down, which I would assume will regress toward the mean. Tennessee's defense has been helped by some ridiculous red zone success. 2 touchdowns allowed and 10 trips into the red zone for opponents. They won't be able to keep that up. Hendon Hooker has been really good in this offense. I think he's really fun with the hypo offense. The other thing that I kind of like about this game, guys, is Tennessee's been really good in the scripted plays at the beginning of the game. So if you like Tennessee, I think you probably want to take Tennessee like first half here, maybe even first quarter. I don't love first quarters because you never know who's going to get the ball first. But Tennessee first half here, if I was betting Tennessee, that's the way I would look at it. On the surface, I really want to like Tennessee, but I think this is quite a few points. And if you look at the history of this series, Florida's had a lot of success against Tennessee. So this is not as good a Florida team as what we've seen in a lot of the other years. And Tennessee is better than they have been. But I think my strongest lean in this game is Tennessee in the first half. I would have to look for a current line. But while one of you are breaking it down, I'll make sure what the current line is. But Dylan, you want to go next on this one?
Yeah, definitely. So this is one game that really stuck out to me when I was looking through the slate. And at first I was pretty high on this Florida team because of that upset win over Utah earlier in the season. But as we've gone along the next 2 weeks, you notice that Florida, their strength on offense is their running game. Their passing game is almost, I don't want to say atrocious, but it's not the best. And and when you look at it, I think Tennessee's best part of their defense is their rush D. So I think we're going to see some issues tonight in terms of Florida being able to drive the ball down the field and create opportunities to score. I think Tennessee's obviously all around the better team, but with it being Tennessee versus Florida and all that stuff, the 10.5 point spread, I think it's at now, right? That kind of scares me. But I do think that the Tennessee defense is able to step up, at least enough to hold Florida from scoring much. But the play that I actually like most is, which with this high of a total, it's kind of scary to take. But I do like this under 62.5 because Tennessee, obviously, as we know, they have a really great passing game. And I think that Florida, their strength is their secondary in terms of being able to in terms of being able to shut down wide receivers. So I think that this under 62.5 is what I would play if I was to take a play in this game, which I hate doing because it's so high. But I think with it being not a rivalry, but almost a rivalry, that under 62 is a good look.
I could see that. Tennessee's defense is definitely better than they have been. Tennessee minus 6.5 in the first half, which I do think is a decent look there for a team that usually starts fast. Kiev, what do you have on this game?
Well, I got to tell you, this spread is pretty disrespectful to Florida in this matchup. I mean, Florida's won the last 8 of 9 going back to 2012. I think I heard like 15 of 16 or something like that if you keep going back. But the numbers I was looking at went back to 2012. Florida's defense has looked bad this far. And, that Utah game, Utah should have won that. There was just some shenanigans that happened in the end zone. But Utah's also a very good team. And now you got Florida in a different position here as a dog. I got to tell you, man, I like Billy Napier in these big games. Everyone's looking at the South Florida game last year, but you also remember that Billy Napier against Louisiana Monroe when he coached for Lafayette last year, that was a close game too. That's just kind of how he does things, and he plays a lot of close games against bad teams, but he really steps up when the competition gets big. Here's the problem with the Vols. I mean, their strength of schedule has not been that great. And when they played Pittsburgh was on their backup quarterback for over half that game, and Pittsburgh still outgained Tennessee. I am not sold on Tennessee and their defense. I'm really not. I think Florida coming into this game is going to use Anthony Richardson and his legs. The way to stop a Josh Heupel offense is by controlling the clock, and I think Napier knows that. It's going to be a lot of 4th and 2s. You're going to see Anthony Richardson with his very big frame getting those, and they're going to slow this game down. And if Tennessee makes any mistakes against Florida and their talent, it's going to be a bad spot. I'm going to kick myself if I didn't bet this game. I took Florida plus 11. I like it at plus 10.5. I'll be okay with losing this one too, because this spread just really stuck out to me as something that is an overreaction coming from the bad strength of schedule, with the Vols beating like Akron and Ball State. Very skewed spread, very skewed results so far. So I took Florida plus 11.
Yeah, based on the history, it makes sense. I think we kind of have some of the same points, but different ways that we find the results here. So we'll see. No big play for me on this one or anything. Dylan liking the under a little bit here in this one, and I see there are some 63s available now. So definitely shop around. 63, a pretty key number when it comes to totals. So you could definitely have it land on that. As we always say, shop around for the best number. You definitely want to get that half a point or a point. I hate it when people lose those ones and got the worst of the line. So let's move on here to the Big Ten. And no, we're not going to talk about Ohio State and Wisconsin, surprisingly. We're going to talk about Dylan. Kiev's a Wisconsin guy, and I'm an Ohio State guy. So we decided.
Your hats.
You're lucky you wore that hat. I would have picked on you a little bit if you weren't wearing your hat today.
Yeah. Last second, I remembered I definitely needed to wear those today. I figured Kiev would have those on. So let's talk, though, about Minnesota and Michigan State, guys. I'm looking at this one right now and seeing this is almost 50-50 on bets and money here so far. Minnesota has looked very good so far this year. How much do we consider the fact that they really haven't played anybody? Also, their best receiver, Ottman Bell, I believe his name is, injured and out now. Michigan State has a multitude of injuries. I mean, there's a lot of injuries that you'll want to check before you bet this game for sure. If you look at the what they've done so far this year, I think Michigan State is a team that I have quite a few questions about. I don't really think Peyton Thorne is that good of a quarterback. To me, Peyton Thorne is a guy that needs to be second fiddle, and they had Kenneth Walker last year. They don't have that star now. Michigan State's defense, huge splits, very good against the run, not good at all against the pass. Same as last year. I had some people get upset with me last week when I said that Washington would throw all over them. They did throw all over them. Penix Jr. is looking really good in that Kalen DeBoer offense. A lot of fun. I think in this one, I have a pretty strong lean here to the under, and I think I'll at least bet something on the under here. Wish I would have gotten the 51 or 51.5, but at 50.5, you have a Minnesota team that plays as slow as anybody in the country, just going up and down the field very slowly. They're going to want to run. They run very heavy. Over 65% of their plays have been runs. And Michigan State, that definitely plays into their strength on defense. Do I really trust Michigan State to score very many in this one? Not really. I think this is a good Minnesota defense. And I don't know. I mean, you could consider, some people would say Minnesota's now the favorite in the Big Ten West. I don't know what the betting odds are now, but Minnesota is definitely in the running to win the Big Ten West, up there with Wisconsin as well. I think this is a Minnesota team that looks amazing on paper, but I do want to see them on the road before I go laying 3 points against a decent team. Kiev, let's see what you have to say about this one.
Well, I love the Big Ten matchups. I'm glad we're getting into conference time. And there is a lot better games, I think, this week coming up here. This line tells you Minnesota's a better team. It's, bounce. I've seen it start at 3, down to 2.5. If I had to bet this, I probably would have to bet Michigan State, but they're pretty injured, some key positions. And I also think that Michigan State they were one of my biggest overrated teams last year. I think they got by a lot of opponents last year just based upon some fluky stuff. And it really showed last week against Washington. I bet the over last week, but I was really close to betting Washington on the side, and that kept going up, and I was afraid of it. But Washington ended up covering anyway. Michigan State put up 32 points per game last year. The Gophers put up 49 so far this year. It kind of makes you think over, but I will say that Minnesota does play a bit slow. Here's the problem, though. Minnesota hasn't played anybody. Their schedule's almost as bad as the Michigan Wolverines so far this year, Kyle. I think that's with apologies to Minnesota, because we didn't know Colorado was going to be this bad. I mean, seriously, that's just they tried to schedule somewhat okay, but it just did not turn out that Colorado was even top. I would put Colorado in the bottom 20. I'm sorry, they're that bad. Now, I'm going to lean to the over, even though I'm not going to get a lot of speed, but at least Michigan State does play a little bit higher pace. Minnesota lost their best receiver in Ottman Bell last week, Kyle, and I'm concerned about that. And I wasn't sure about his status when I did take a small piece of the over. Now it's just a lean for me. But I just see points this game. And I think PJ Fleck, if he finally wins this game, he's going to start getting some talk here around the airwaves. I think he's kind of being ignored. I'm going to stay away from this game, but I'm going to lean to the over.
Dylan, what do you have on this one?
Well, now I feel kind of dumb. Not dumb, but one of my plays that I actually liked a lot this week was Minnesota to cover. And that was one of the questions I had about their strength of schedule. They're playing Western Illinois and Colorado, and Michigan State's definitely played the better team last week with Washington, and that was their first real test of the year. And we talked about this game last week on the Cowboys show, Kyle. And I think we both liked that over for that game. But this one, I definitely lean under because of the fact that Minnesota runs the ball quite heavily. But I got the Gophers at -2.5 earlier in the week. And I like this a lot because of the fact that their running game this year has looked unstoppable. And I know it's against really crappy teams, but I think that we see it still come to play even against a better Michigan State team. I mean, better than their previous competition. But when you look into Thorne, I don't know how much you guys take into account like PFF grades, but he's like the 131st ranked quarterback in the nation or something, 117th, which is
Good.
I was like 131st. I could think of a few worse than
yeah,
him.
no, 117th, which is kind of crazy. But the one thing that do we know if Jaden Reed is going to be playing?
I think it's doubtful he'll play, but we don't know
Yeah.
that for
This
sure.
is my last update here on him.
Okay, because last year he was what, like, wasn't he? I think he's the best returning Big Ten receiver.
Yeah,
And
questionable still.
yeah, and this year he hasn't really, his output hasn't been as high as it was last year. But I don't know. I think Minnesota this is the game that they proved that they are for real. So I'm taking Minnesota -2.5 because of those skill player people that they have on offense. With two players that they overlook are their two tight ends. The one of them is Span Ford. He's a really good tight end, and I think that he's going to be able to attack that Michigan State linebacking core. That's going to be one guy that I think is going to have a huge game. So
yeah, and I'll tell you, Michigan State's strength of schedule hasn't been all that great. They rank 89th on Sagarin. Minnesota's ranks 216th. I gotta tell you, Minnesota could be the talk of the West after this. And right now, if I had to pick someone to win the Big Ten West, I would pick Minnesota.
Yeah, Mohammed Ibrahim, is that his name? Ibrahim
Yeah.
or something? That's the running back too. I saw he was getting some Heisman talk because he's been putting up such big numbers. Don't think he's going to win the Heisman or anything, but it shows how good he's been. We'll see how he can do against a good defense. I think I would lean Minnesota if I had to take a side. I kind of like the under, so a bit of a disagreement there between Kiev and myself. That's all right. We usually agree. It's nice to disagree once in a while. Let's talk now about James Madison and App State here coming up this weekend. Dylan, you picked this game. I'm going to let you go first on this one.
Yeah, I know it's not the best one, but it's intriguing to me because of how App State was highly talked about last week because of the last minute Hail Mary against Troy. Yeah, against Troy. To win the game, which we thought they were going to lose, but they also upset Texas A&M early in the year. So I think there was a lot of hype around this school, and they are good, obviously. And James Madison comes in and plays in this week as a 7-point underdog. And James Madison, they haven't played anyone this year, and most people don't even know who James Madison is. Most casual football fans. But one of the things that you look at and you see on paper is James Madison's defense has been unreal. And I think that this is going to be even though they've already played Texas A&M, I think this is going to be a big test for Appalachian State. I think that we see a James Madison team come in and prove for the first time in a while that they are for real. Because if you look at their defense, they're only allowing 15 yards rushing a game or something unreal, which is crazy. But I like James Madison to cover because of the fact of how good their defenses looked. And this is going to be their first real test. I know that. And a lot of people are going to be like, well, who they played? They played essentially nobody. But I think that this is going to be the first real test they have, and they're going to come out and prove that they are a good team. And I honestly could potentially see them upsetting App State. So.
Yeah, I like it. Kiev, I'll go next. I think you already know what I'm probably going to say in this one based on, how I handicap games. I like James Madison quite a bit in this game. This is a terrible spot for App State. I mean, they have played so many. If you're a situational better only, you would circle this game 2 or 3 times and be like, I have to fade App State. They played North Carolina, which, the 63-61 overtime game or whatever it was. And then they played Texas A&M. They go to Texas A&M. That was their biggest win, maybe in program history. Then they come back last week. They really should have lost to Troy, but Troy kind of deserves it for taking that safety and trying that nonsense. I hated that one because I have a Troy over 6 season win total. That might end up being what burns me. If so, I'll remember that one very well. But App State, they can't get up for every single game. They can't have their best performance all the time. They have to have a letdown here somewhere. Now they play James Madison, who was a Division II team. This is an FCS team. This would be a team that would be easy to overlook for them compared to a rival like Troy. To me, too, it's entirely possible that James Madison is actually pretty good. We don't know if they are because they haven't really played anybody good, but their transfer quarterback has played really good in this system, Centeo. They have a winning culture, a really good head coach for sure. The risk here is the lack of playing anybody difficult, and certainly would it shock me if they lose by a decent amount? It wouldn't be shocking, but I think it's a situational spot you have to bet, and I'm going to totally agree that I think they could win this game outright. Plus 225 on the money line. If you're betting James Madison here, you got to bet some of it, at least on the money line here. So this is my favorite one of the ones that we're talking about here today. I like James Madison. Kiev, what do you think here?
I'm glad you brought this game. I wanted to hear what you guys had to say because James Madison is the team that I can't figure out yet. I don't have a ton of history with FCS betting. I know that they were really good back then. I kind of thought that their change in offense would affect them more, but at the same time, I still can't get a good gauge of it because, as Dylan said, the strength of schedule is big. James Madison ranks 222nd so far to App State's 26. Now, is that James Madison's fault? No. I mean, they're just trying to get games scheduled when they're moving into the FBS, right? And they happen to play a bunch of tomato cans. But, in saying that, I think that App State is in a horrible spot. Like you mentioned, Kyle, it's just, you're right, getting up the fourth time. You have that really tough loss to North Carolina. You beat Texas A&M, then that last second play against Troy, man. Oh, when I saw that, Kyle, I was like, college football is back. I was so pumped up when I saw that. It was so exciting. But, man, the spot is terrible. But then I started thinking, is the spot terrible? App State is playing a team that's coming into their division, and it's almost like, can they get up again because they want to show that they're not going to get beat by the new guy? My situation screams James Madison. My numbers doesn't, because I don't have a good number for James Madison. So I really have Appalachian State -9 just based on power ratings. But I'm not comfortable with my power rating. So it wouldn't shock me if James Madison won this thing straight up. It wouldn't shock me if App State covers. It's a complete stay away from me, but I can definitely see whenever there's variance like that, I like moneyline plays, Kyle and Dylan.
Yeah, same. I mean, I think this is one of those games where Dylan and I would both not be stunned if they lose by 21 points, but it's one of those plays that I'd go ahead and make. I'm happy to make this bet. If it loses, it loses. I feel like it's a good situational spot play. If App State can keep getting up for every game, even after these ridiculous wins right at the end, then go ahead. I'm gonna pay to see it. It might happen. Like Kiev said, I think there's a ton of variance here, which is why I do like taking money line for part of the bet here at plus 225. I think there's a better chance than what those odds imply that James Madison wins here outright. So some good discussion there. I like that you brought that one up, Dylan. I was when you sent that one over, I was pretty fired up that we were going to talk about James Madison and App State. Kiev and I like talking about these under the radar games anyways. So it's nice to not always talk about the blue bloods and the big name teams.
Yeah.
Let's switch over to the NFL. So bigger name teams here coming to the NFL. But we're going to talk about Sunday night football and Monday night football. Let's start off with the 49ers and the Broncos. We've seen some massive line movement here. I know this one's been tricky back and forth. Now it's between the threes, obviously, so none of these numbers are nearly as important. Kiev, I'm going to let you start off on this one. What do you think about 49ers and Broncos?
So this was the first play I made on the Niners this week at +2, and it went through the 0. Then there's some pushback, and I think the pushback is just based upon Russell Wilson's history versus the Niners of being so good. I believe he's something like 15 for 17 or something. Only 2 losses, right? But of course, this was during a lot of the good Seahawk years, and a lot of this time was also obviously when the Niners were bad. But since 2019, and this is more the Kyle Shanahan years, Russell Wilson was 4-0 against his team. So another thing to think about. But I also have to say that this is a different situation for Russell Wilson, and there's a massive coaching advantage here for the 49ers. I will put Kyle Shanahan massively ahead of what I've seen from Hackett so far. And I don't even think that I don't even think that he knows what he's doing at all. Russell Wilson kind of looks lost. I hate the fact that the injuries to KJ Hamler and Jetty coming into this game where they might need to put up some kind of magical points here to beat a good 49ers defense is good. They're going to kind of double up on Sutton there. Maybe Russell has a little bit of success with the tight ends, but in my opinion, this is an obvious play just based on coaching matchup. And not only that, I had to upgrade the Niners highly in my power ratings when Jimmy Garoppolo came back because I was only down on them because of the Trey Lance switch. This is all day for me. Anything under 3 points for the 49ers, guys.
I agree with you, Kiev, and I think Jimmy G kind of gets a bad rap. He's really a pretty good quarterback, especially in this system. They're really fortunate that they got him back, and now he's able to be in there because they could have been in a lot worse spot. Kiev, I'm going to bounce another question off you here real quick. The total here sitting at 44, 43, 43 and a half, somewhere between 43 and 44. It's interesting because Denver has scored 0 touchdowns in 6 trips into the red zone. That says a lot it says a lot about Russell Wilson's usually been good in the red zone, Seattle. Now, obviously, now he has Hackett and they've had all sorts of problems. But do you have any lean on this total here?
Yeah, I'm going to lean to the under. I know in Denver, the ball flies when you kick those field goals, and sometimes you see 60, 65-yard field goals, but the offense can get pretty gassed as well as the defense. The Niners have one of the best defenses in the whole league when healthy. Well, guess what? Bosa's still healthy, so you got a lot going for them there. I think Denver's defense is very good too. They don't necessarily show it all the time, but they do have a ton of talent on that defense, and I expect them to do something here. I would probably say maybe a Denver team total under could be possible, but yeah, I'm going to lean to the under here. I don't know if that's the way you were thinking, Kyle. I didn't make a play, but that's where I would go.
Yeah, honestly, I didn't really have any strong lean on the total. I agree with you on the side. I was just kind of curious to see what you thought about the total. I think it's weird that Denver's actually moved the ball well. If you look at yards per play, they're ranked pretty high, but then they get down there and they either fumble, have to kick a field goal. And remember the game in their first game where they were fumbling at the goal line multiple times. I mean, just crazy stuff. You're starting to really wonder what's going on there in Denver. And I agree with you. I would have to take the 49ers here. I didn't bet it at that good number like you did. I am still strongly considering betting them even at this number. I mean, it's not a huge difference betting San Francisco at -1.5 versus +1.5 or +2 or something like that. So, guys, I see the odds board just lighting up on the Chargers game. I'm wondering if this means Herbert's out. I don't know.
Well, I have the Jaguars +7 from earlier this week, just based upon the free roll there. So we'll see.
Yeah,
I see
smart.
fives. Yeah, that's a -5, so pretty big difference, and we'll see what happens on that one. Dylan, I want to get your thoughts here. Broncos, can they turn it around here at home, or are you kind of agreeing with the 49ers here?
This one is tough to me because, as you mentioned, both these teams have really good defenses. I think they're both like top 5 in the league in defense this year so far. But essentially, it's because all their games have been super low scoring for both sides for the most part. And I think that the 49ers are going to be able to attack this Broncos defense via the run game. Because in my opinion, I think the 49ers passing game hasn't been as good as we've seen in years past. But that could be because Jimmy G hasn't been playing, because I fully agree with what you said about how I actually was higher on Jimmy G than I was Trey Lance. I don't know why they were so quick to want to put him in the backup role. But for this one, I honestly, I don't think I could touch this game, but I would lean 49ers. It's tough for me because the Broncos have a lot of talent, but it seems like their new coach is kind of holding them back, as we've seen time management so bad. So many different opportunities where he could have won the Vikings game, and then obviously they won last week, but barely. And I think that that's kind of their downfall right now, is this coach doesn't really know what he's doing, it seems like. So, but I would take the 49ers because of their really good defense and their ability to run the ball with Debo and Wilson and whoever else might be running the ball this week for them. So I like the 49ers to cover.
Yeah, I mean, I think the coaching mismatch here is about as big as you could get in the NFL. I mean, I don't know. I can't imagine a coach has had much worse of a start in 2 games. And I know he's 1-1, but Hackett has looked really bad in the first 2 games. Really,
Dylan, are you a
really pulling
Broncos
them
fan?
down.
No, I'm a Chargers fan.
Oh, that's right. You said Chargers. Okay, because Boise State's somewhat close. It's funny. We all agree on this. That means it's almost a guarantee, right, Kyle?
Guaranteed loss, a guaranteed. No, I mean it seems like sometimes there's no locks around here. We know how it goes, but
I wouldn't be surprised if the Broncos went outright either. Honestly, it's one of those games where it could happen. So
it could happen. I think there's enough variance there, but based on what we've seen so far, it's hard to bet the Broncos, and it'd be pretty easy to suggest that the 49ers are the right side here. Let's talk about Monday Night Football. Kiev, I was looking at this, and I was like, we might have talked about these in the wrong order. I mean, this is a pretty ugly game, to be honest. Cowboys and Giants going into this one. We've got the Giants -1. A total of 39. I do see there's some wind forecast, about 15 miles per hour here for this game on Monday night. Obviously, it's a little ways away, so keep track of the weather there. I guess I'll start and say I hope you guys have stronger opinions on this game than I do. But this is one where Cooper Rush looked pretty good last week against my Bengals. Man, the Bengals off to a rough start here, losing all these games right at the buzzer by a field goal. But I think that Dallas is a pretty talented defense. You've got Diggs, who's obviously a turnover guy. You've got Parsons, who, I mean, gosh, a tremendous pass rusher, about as good as there is in the NFL. The Giants, they've squeaked by. Are the Giants really as good as their record? Probably not. I like seeing Barkley play well. Easy guy to root for, in my opinion. He was bashed quite a bit and had injuries and stuff. I want to bet the under, but 39 is just so low. It's really hard to bet under 39 in today's NFL. So I'm going to say that's my slight lean. I have no idea what to do with the side here. Dylan, do you have any thoughts on this one?
In terms of for like a total or a spread, I actually do lean the Giants. And the reason why I like them this week is because of the fact that we saw Tampa Bay essentially tear apart the Cowboys in the first week. I mean, the score was 19-3, but they essentially dominated that entire game. And the reason why they won that game, I think, is because they stuck with their running game. Leonard Fournette, I think he ran the ball like 35 times that game. And I think that we will see a Giants team, as we've seen in the weeks past, they're going to stick with their run with Saquon. I think they realize that if they want to win the games, they need to run the ball 30, 35 times a game. And I think that we saw that against the Titans. The Giants ran the ball a lot, and they were able to end up winning that game. I was trying to pull up the stats, but my web browser froze. But I think they're going to run the ball a lot, and I think that's the reason why the total is so low. But I'm going to take the Giants money line if I was going to take a side because of how low the spread is. I think might as well just take the money line, so you can get a push if they tie, which this could be one of those tie games. So, but I actually like Saquon Barkley's rush props as well for over yards. I was trying to pull up what it was, but my browser is frozen. So it's probably at 80. I bet it's at like 80, 81.
Yeah, I think that's actually a good look. I like the thought process of taking some Barkley overs, whether it be rushing and receiving or just rushing yards in general, because I would think there'd be a lot of running. If it is kind of windy, that would even help that as well. So we'll see about that. Kiev, do you have any lean here on this game?
You weren't lying when you said this game stinks, man. And I think the only thing that could make this game worse is if it was on Amazon Prime on Monday night. So 39 points. I really could see just fluky stuff happening here. I don't like the Giants defense. I think they're kind of getting by on magic and actually pure coaching from Brian Daboll. I can't stand McCarthy as a coach, although the Cowboys have been known to step up with the backup in, just like they did against the Bungles last week. Sorry, apologies, Kyle. And like they did last year against Minnesota. You remember when Dallas went to Minnesota with Cooper Rush? Everyone took Minnesota when they found out Dak was out, and then Dallas ended up winning outright. So they do seem to step up and kind of turn it up on defense. They're going to try to control the clock by running those two stud running backs, and that's exactly the way I would approach it if I was McCarthy. can we give McCarthy trust? Not really. I mean, if I had to go coach to coach, I'm going Dayball. It's pretty simple with me. But I'm so disgusted with this Monday night game. I'm not even going to tease it. I'm probably going to stay away and watch something else on TV.
Kiev, I was just going to say that. So I'm pretty sure Monday night's the night I'm going to be like, all right, guys, kids, you want the wife, you want to pick something here. We'll probably end up like watching The Voice or something like that instead of Monday Night Football. Hey, I got to have my Saturday and Sunday where I control what's on those TVs. So yeah. I'll give up the Monday night here in this one. Dylan, I looked here. The over-under is 75.5 for Barkley rushing yards. You can get that at plus 110 if you take the over. What are your thoughts on that?
I do like it. I think that the Cowboys do have a good defense, but I believe that most of their interior D linemen, I'm not too high on them this year. It seems like a lot of teams are able to get to the second level pretty quickly. But one thing I do question is how good the Giants offensive line is going to look against this defense. But I think that he should be able to get that number. I'm pretty sure he's gotten that number in every game if my browser wants to ever start working. But yeah, so I would still take that. I think that's a good look.
The other question is, if you like Barkley to be getting a lot of carries here, what about Barkley anytime touchdown? Like, you think I see plus 105 at one book and minus 140 at another. So definitely shop around here. I don't know. Do either of you guys think if Barkley's going to get a lot of carries, do you like an anytime touchdown prop here?
I think I do.
It's plus 105 for him to score a touchdown.
Plus 105. Now with a total of 39 myself.
Yeah, that was what I was going to say. Discussion wise, like, it's kind of hard to be excited to bet an even money touchdown prop when the total is 39. So, we could see them run between the 20s quite a bit and Barkley get yards. I think I would prefer the over 75.5, which is actually plus 110. So you can get an even better price on that. So, Dylan, I like the way you're thinking there that this could be a lot of running in this game. Let's move on from this crummy game and let's talk about
Herbert's listed out according to some of my information coming in. So let me quick do Jaguars money line. No,
yeah, right. Minus 3.5.
Pretty quick here. I'm just letting you know.
Right.
Our money line play that we do, it has to be 3.5 or better. But I'm just saying there's a lot of Twitter going on right now. So guys I follow that I trust that are saying he's out, and I'm surprised that Ian Rappaport did not say it yet. So just know that right now.
Yeah, I see the line as low as 3.5 now at Circa. So this line's dropped from 7 really quickly here in this one. Dylan, do you have a 3.5 point underdog or larger in either college football or the NFL money line that you would like to take here for this week? If you want, we can go first while you think.
Yeah, can you guys go first? Well, because originally I was gonna do the James Madison when I sent that, but then I realized that was like a game that we were actually talking about, not just an underdog. But I
still do it.
Yeah, well, I mean, I do like that one, but I'll tell you another one. I have my notes written right here, so let me just find which one that I.
Yeah, Kiev, do you want to go first? I have a couple that I like, so I'll let you go ahead and go first.
Yeah, I've been back and forth. There's one in the NFL I kind of like, but I'm gonna change it up a little bit. I'm gonna go with Missouri at Auburn, and they're plus 7 right now. But if you look at Auburn, they're kind of in quarterback hell, and their only chance is really running the ball. And I think Missouri's finally starting to figure out how to stop the run. And they're going to stack the box against this team that doesn't have their 2 quarterbacks in my opinion. I think that Brady Cook's a decent quarterback for Auburn. He's throwing at 65% right now. It's kind of like, when is what you asked for this Missouri team. Sorry, I said Auburn. I like him for Missouri, but I don't like the fact that TJ Finley is out for Auburn, and they're down to Robbie Ashford, who has thrown the ball 29 times, only 15 completions, 1 TD and 2 interceptions. I think Missouri is live coming in this game. It's kind of like the most ignored game coming in. I don't like what Harson's doing, and Dylan, you probably know a little bit more about that, Coach.
Yeah.
For Auburn now, he's almost like a sitting duck to me, in my opinion. I'm liking this. It's like 230 plus 230 right now in some books. I think you should grab that one.
I like it, Kiev. That was one of them I was considering, so I'm glad you went first on that one. I'll go ahead and go now, and I'm going to take Oregon State here against USC. I know USC is tough to fade. You can get plus 190 on Oregon State. I considered going really big on an underdog here that was almost plus 400, but I decided not to go that risky. I'm going to take Oregon State. I think Jonathan Smith's a really good coach. We've seen Oregon State have tremendous home field advantage in the past. I'm going to date myself a little bit. You remember way back when Jacquizz Rodgers was at Oregon State and they upset USC. I think that was USC's only loss that year and probably cost them a chance to play for the national title. Oregon State's had some really good wins at home. What is USC in turnover margin this year? Plus 10, 10 turnovers to nothing. I mean, if everybody keeps giving them the ball, then they're obviously going to keep winning like that. But I think USC is a good team. I don't think their defense is as good as some people think they are. I think this is a game where Oregon State at least has a chance here. So I'm going to take the almost plus 200 on Oregon State in this one. Dylan?
I think I just need to take my James Madison pick earlier because that was one that I was on before, but because I have a really bold one, but I don't want to sound like an idiot when they lose by 50. So
I'll be honest, James Madison would have been my favorite as well. So I was just trying to give another one, but I think plus 225 is a really good number on that. So I think we have some solid underdogs here for this weekend. If you do put in a money line underdog parlay, don't bet much money on it because we know that you can really burn up money on these parlays in general, especially underdog money lines. So we have a little fun with these. We've cashed quite a few here in the past. Dylan, again, thanks so much for joining us here today. Appreciate you taking the time. Let all the people know how they can find your work and where to go.
Most definitely, yeah. Thank you guys for having me on. It was great chatting. I like expanding my the people that I discuss football with, and it's great. I met Kyle last week, and now I'm on the Better Odds sports betting show with Keeve and Kyle, and this was great. I loved chatting, so I look forward to seeing how all of our plays pan out. But people can find me on Twitter at the handle below, but at Dilberto's Picks. But that's essentially where I post majority of my content. So find me out there, and I'd love to chat some ball with anyone that wants to. So my DMs are open.
All right, Kiev, where can people find all of your information?
Yep, just at theoddsbreakers.com is where we have a lot of great handicappers. There's a lot of free plays out there, of course, and there's a lot of information. You know, that's what I pride myself on, is putting out content for people to make their own decisions. I try to do the work really hard on Sundays when I'm doing my power ratings and looking at box scores. I do a box score analysis article, and just hope that people can use that info for their own handicapping. But if you just like picks, or you actually want to get our premium plays where we put all of our thought and hard work into, you can become a member, and that'd be great as well. But if nothing else, feel free to check us out and grab our free picks at theoddsbreakers.com.
Absolutely. You can check out my work at huntersportspicks.com. I've got a free picks newsletter. I'll send that out here later today. Had 16 wins in a row until last night, and then Steelers Browns under ruined that. But 16-1 the last 17 plays, a really nice heater. I know a lot of people have been on board for that. Appreciate that very much. Certainly, you can go to huntersportspicks.com. I've been putting up some free articles. Ron Ace Sports has been doing some articles here with me. Kiev, you know him, a really sharp guy, great guy. There's some good articles up there with some really good betting information. If you want to check that out, those are all free. Like I said, the free picks newsletter and the premium plays are there as well. You can follow me at Kyle Hunter Picks on Twitter as well. Guys, thanks a lot. This has been a lot of fun. I hope everybody has a great weekend, and thanks again.
Thanks, Kyle.
Definitely. Thank you, guys.
Thank you for watching Better Odds Sports Betting.